Hey everybody. So in the last video I showed, in the last one I showed how to draw this bed, and here we have a chair. So you can also basically draw any prop or item in your house using these kinds of tricks. So here let me show that as a small recap of that here with these shapes, because I think this is really important. So I want to say it over and over again, because yeah, that also helped me a lot. So here, starting out with this, drawing this cube. So here, like this here. So this is the top side, or oh no, this is here. We see it like this here. And then we can start drawing in the shapes like this. So especially when you're starting out, it's really good to learn how to draw basically every shape, thinking like this, like if you're making it out of one big block of stone. So yeah, go ahead and try that out by following this one. But I already showed that a couple of times, so I don't want to repeat stuff too much. Here, this fire extinguisher. So using these shapes to draw this object. So here you can see it. So here's a shape like this. Really try to see them as separate shapes, because that also makes it easier to rotate the object around, right? As with the present. So then we have this here. So now this has this angle, but you can also draw it here in this angle, and maybe a little bit more from the side. Then you would see something maybe like this here, first drawing these shapes. And then you can start drawing in here these shapes on top. So maybe that's something you can try out if you want a challenge. So try to see if you can draw these objects from a different angle. So like this. And I do that by thinking in these basic shapes first, and then later draw in all the details after you have drawn those shapes, because it's easier to think in those basic shapes and rotate that around. So let's continue with the next one, the water gun. Again, here as well, starting with this shape here, like this, and adding this thickness to it, like this here, and then adding here the shape here, like this, and the shape here. Then we have this shape here. We can start breaking it down, right? And this is something will become easier after you practice it over and over again. So I can really recommend to draw these objects, so step by step, or maybe try to look at toy guns or something and try to break it down in shapes like I'm doing here. I think that's a really good exercise. So use the internet to search on toy guns, or maybe you have a toy gun at home, a water pistol or something, and break it down in these shapes. And then, yeah, add stuff like I'm doing here to get this final result. Here, the space gun. I think the same thing. Here I started out with this. Basically, it's a balloon, right? It's really funny to recognize the shapes you can see. And with this thing, it's really important that you understand how this stuff is rotating around. It's getting around like this here, and then here we have the shape here, etc. So again, yeah, I would recommend just, if you want it, study these drawings one by one. Here we can talk a little bit more about design. So for example, here this sword, you see it from the front view. And I think especially when I try to design something difficult, like a sword with all these kinds of details, I like to start with the front view. So maybe, yeah, design a cool sword with this front view. And then the next one here, we have this more basic sword. Here, maybe I can put it off like this here. Yeah, once this one here, or maybe here, take this one. So I take this one, and also feel free to use my drawing to draw your own version on top of that. I don't really mind. You probably won't even recognize it's mine. So I don't recommend it to doing that to everything. I would recommend actually to use your own shapes, especially because, yeah, you just want to be able to do it yourself and not, yeah, use other people, their work. So maybe forget that I said that. So as a practice, you could use it like I'm doing here, but I would recommend to try it out with your own sketches as well. So here I'm using these shapes because that's always, especially with drawing, watch out that you're not copying people, their work too much, right? You don't want to be accused of plagiarism. So here we have this this eye here. So start with finding these basic shapes, and don't worry too much if it's not perfect yet. Try to maybe first put something something down like this here. Going down here and here up. Then here like this. And then here. And let's see if that works or not. Maybe here draw this line. So we have this guide here. Turn this one off. So a rough sketch like this could actually work. So when you want to design a sword like this, I would first design it in a front view because that's way easier. And then after that, you can start drawing it in this perspective. It doesn't even have to be super perfect or something, especially in this more cartoony style I'm working in. Yeah. Here we're looking a little bit in the sides. Those eyes, something like this here. And then here we have the shape. Like this here. And it's going down. You see this eye covers this part a little bit. So here, so this is actually how I figure stuff out. And then you also can see that for me, it's also a lot of trial and error because I need some sort of space here. So I push it a little bit to the front. So it's probably a little bit hard to follow because, but here you can see a little bit of my struggles figuring out this stuff and thinking, oh, this should be a bit longer. It's not a problem, right? That it's not perfect, right? Because when you put something down on paper, after that you can start figuring out why it's not working and just try out stuff. Also on paper, right? You can just erase stuff and draw it again. So here, going up here, point here, like this here. not really happy with it, but I just keep working until it does work. It's always a lot of trial and error. And as you can see here, also for me, the first time I also noticed some stuff doesn't work right away. Proportions of this sword are wrong. But maybe I will make this again lighter and do another drawing on top of it until I have it right. I keep just working and working on it till I have something that I think is working fine. You also need to develop a little bit of feeling for it here. But at least I have this reference, so I know a bit where I want to work towards too. So yeah, that's how I would draw this sword. Let's show this this drink again, a cylinder, but although the cylinder is like, oh, see how this is not still not really perfect. Here we have this cylinder like this here, this here, but it's not like this, right? It's going shape here. So don't make everything straight. Learn to draw these things like this here. Also here with this handle, it's not like this, right? It's not straight. But you could start with a shape like this, and then something like this here. But you could start with those really basic shapes and then just change the shape along the way. The same with the foam, basically. So how do I draw that foam? So I start with the shape like this, and I just start drawing this basic shape here. And then I erase the shape like this here. And then I start drawing in the shape like this here. Then I start drawing in shapes like this. So here I start with this big shape and break it down. It always comes down to that. So maybe if you've seen me doing that once, you know almost everything I use to draw these objects, especially the drawing. But it's also really important to see how to apply it to all these different objects. That's one different thing that at least helped me out a lot. So this cauldron, here I started out with this shape, right? So that's basically a shape like this. So it's a ball and it's a cylinder on top of this here. And you can combine these shapes like this here, and then merge them together here. So maybe you guys, maybe some people have used 3D programs to draw on, and then you can combine these things, and then you can erase this ball here, this half ball inside it, like this here. And then we can transform it like this. So once, yeah, if you did 3D, or 3D can also help you understand making these kinds of objects, right? So and then you just morph these shapes here, like this here. It's not that I always draw these things as I'm showing here, because I doodle way more. But yeah, it is how I look at these things, and I don't draw it every time. For example, here, I think about how this goes around here, and this side goes inside there. This line's going here. So I'm not always drawing these guides, but I think about them. And because of that, I think it's really useful for, especially when you're starting out, to think about it. So here, you have the shape. And then you have this here. So I think I made this a little bit too long. So I simply make it like this here. And you can really play around with it, right? So we can also do something like this. It's something like this here. Then maybe it's an heater, right? And then you have different shapes. So you can really play around with all those different shapes to make different things. Potions. I already showed the potion, of course. But here are some other versions. For example, if you want to work somewhere, a lot of times coming up with sketches like this for different proposals could be a big part of it. So maybe you can try to come up with some more potions in different shapes. You can really go crazy. Maybe you want to make a square potion. So something like this here, and then here, adding the shape on top, right? And make a square potion, or use another shape, pyramid shape, or whatever. You can use the internet to search it on. So here, this book, how colored. I also colored it with this effect, and yeah, I already showed it a little bit how to use those soft brushes and etc. And you can also use that here. For example, if you have the ebook, you can definitely take these line art and color them if you want for practice. And I would actually recommend to maybe first try to draw them yourself, because I think drawing is more important than the coloring. So what I usually do is, for example, here with picking these colors, I just pick this brown color like this here. And it's something when you do it more and more, you will get a more feel of it. Here, starting this to draw this object. In this course, I really want you to focus on learning how to draw all these different shapes. And when you get that feeling of, nice proportions and etc., really go. And also, if you think about style, for example, here, all my drawings have this certain style, and I get this question a lot: how to develop your own style? I would say practice the things you want to get good at. Practice, study the artists you like, and after a while, you will develop your own style. When you study other people, their work, you take a little bit of it in yourself, and then you study someone else. You take a little of that person, and you have your own way of drawing, just the same as you have your own way of writing, right? So that's all, all changing. So here you can actually see how I sketch. So here I show really how to use these shapes and etc. But when I'm sketching, I'm way more messier and freer. So don't feel bad when you're also like that. So I like to add these really precise images so people can really follow it step by step clearly. So I think it will be a little bit too messy if I show my rough sketch version here. But when you're trying to design your own book, don't feel bad to just try out stuff and erase it again and change stuff until you find something. So the sketches don't have to be that perfect. Be really messy when you're designing stuff yourself. And when you're happy with the design you've made, then you can start cleaning up the drawing. What I usually do is when I have a rough sketch and I like it, I make it lighter, and I start with drawing the final version on top of that. So let's look at here, this one. So I'm going a bit quickly through it because I wanted to end this video with drawing some effects, since I already shown so much different props. But maybe you want to draw one of these props, so I wanted to show a little bit on how to tackle them. So here we have this cylinder, and this is not only perspective. So this side is really tiny and this side is really big. So from the side, this would look like this, right? So once you have a shape like this, and you can draw a cross inside it to help you a little bit. This line here, and then we have this circle here, and then you can shape these lines here like this. And then you can draw inside this here. So I usually draw these circles freehand, but it can be quite tricky to draw a circle perfectly. So what you could actually do is square. Yeah, this is fine. So when you have this square, you can draw cross inside it like this, and this here. Then you can here you can have these around this point. You can draw a circle inside it. This will help you draw it in perspective, because if we have a square in perspective, so here, and this is just a small trick I'm using for perspective. I'm not going too much into perspective, but this can help a bit with drawing circles in perspective. So here, you can figure out how that circle would look like in perspective. So, but I actually, so you could use that, especially when you want to draw realistically. They often use things like that. But here, I did it freehand. So that's also something you can practice, but maybe that's really difficult when you're starting out. And but just as with everything, just keep practicing and practicing, and eventually you will get the hang out of it. In the end, I can only show you how I do it. But one of the most important things I want to tell people is that if you really want something and you keep practicing, you will get better at it. Of course, some things are a little bit out of talent and stuff like that. But I really believe the most important thing is that you don't give up and you really try to learn stuff. So here we have this. And yeah, once I have this, I can start drawing all these details as I've shown here. For example, here this lens, this is a bit of ball shape. And again, use internet to find the real object. And you don't have to be precise, but it can help with details like how is this part connected, or how is this part connected? What kind of things do they have at the bottom, etc. So yeah, details like that can really make something believable. So a pen of pancakes. Here, so another important thing is that when you draw a bunch of stuff, first draw one shape like this here, and then draw the other shapes inside it. So maybe it's fun to try out something else. So here I want to draw this stack of pancakes, a really big stack of pancakes, and really going crazy with it. So yeah, let's go. This is on the floor or something, or on the table, whatever. And this is going like this here. So maybe there's a pancake, and here's a pancake flying or something. So now you can start drawing. So I would take a little bit more time out of it, but I'm using the same steps, right? I start with this big tube, and then you can draw the pancakes, right, inside that the tube. Maybe decide to maybe here's some space between them, etc. So maybe that's something you can figure out, to play around with, right? So start with this big shape and then break it down. Maybe there's this maple syrup on top of this. So actually, a lot of times my sketches do look like this. So here, trying to figure out if this is working or not. And if I like it, I start with the final design and draw all these pancakes. Maybe make it not perfect round. Something like this. Like this really thick pancake, so maybe make it thinner. Actually, when I really would do something like this, I would use the internet or something to figure out how does something like this would work. So I use a lot of reference, and a lot of people ask me if how to draw without a reference, and I'm always saying use a reference, preferably photos or real life stuff. You will learn so much. It's as an artist, you don't know how everything looks exactly, right? So you can always use some reference, and these days it's really easy to look up some photos for reference. So yeah, instead of me watching how to draw all these different stuff, I would say try to draw this stuff and try to get as close as possible following these steps. And I really believe that trying to figure it out yourself, that's really helpful to learn. The same here with this donut. You can see me drawing it perfectly and then follow me each line. But I think it's really useful to look at this and then try to draw it on paper. And if it's not working right, that's perfect, because then you can think, why am I not drawing as Mitch does? What I'm doing different? And the thinking, that can really help you out. So I would really recommend that. The same with this desert. Maybe you can first practice this desert and then try out a different desert. Look at your favorite restaurant, think of your own favorite dessert, and try to make your own version. So let's look at these crystals. I think that's something interesting to cover. So the most simple way to like this, just like with shorts, maybe you try to draw it first from the front view, right? Drawing a rupee. Some people will know that. So here, go down here, drawing these lines. So since it's symmetrical, you can use this trick of edit, transform, flip horizontal. And you flip it. Let's erase this a little bit, and then you can start drawing on the final lines like that. So that's basically what I'm also doing here. But now let's do it in this angle. So start with this outline. So like down here, line here, a line here, line here, this line here, then this line here, line here, and line here, maybe go up here, and then we have this line here and there. So once I have this, like this here, I can start adding these lines. Like this here. So here, go here, go down here, and then you can again erase this and maybe try to make the final sketch. Be adding some stuff like this here, some damages, right? You want to draw an extra crack here, something like this. And yeah, you can add as much details as you would like. So how to make this crystal? So I started with this big overall shape. And I'm going to break down this shape into smaller shapes. Sorry. Like this here. Going down. Sorry again. And let's continue. So here we have this shape. Like this. Then we have these arrows. Go like this here. So I'm adding these arrows like this here. And make this a little bit lighter. And let's draw a shape like this here. And a shape going up. Shape like this. Shape like this here. And try to be a little bit random, right? So maybe again, like I'm always saying, practice it first by drawing the exact version of this one. And after that, try to make your own version. Try to be more random with the shapes, etc. So this one is always slightly different than original. So then I'm bringing it down, and I'm defining more of these shapes, making it more random again. Again, like this. It's okay. If it's a little bit different because these shapes are random all the way. So maybe this here, here. So here we have these outlines. And once you have that, maybe I can take the original one for that. So here, this one. Place it here. Make it bigger. Make it lighter. So here, then basically I'm adding all these segments like this here. So let me now show how to actually color this. So here, let's have this one. Oh. I hope it's not too pixely. Let's take the, oh, accidentally turned something on. Yeah, now I can copy paste it. So here we have this thing. And let's place it here. And now we have this here, and we can put colors behind it. Put this on multiply. And let's start adding these layers like this here. So here we have purple. And let's just take one. So, and then I'm adding, so for example, let me all start. So I also add all these separate layers like this here. So for all these segments, I create a different layer, slightly different color. So it's easy to see which shape is what. The same as I did with the bottle earlier. So next, I take the gradient tool, this one. You also have that in other programs, so not only Photoshop. Oh, and I use the gradient tool, this one. So I press this button, then I add the gradient like this here. And what I do next is I make selections like this here, the same layer in the gradient tool, like this here, and a layer here, like this. And I just keep adding stuff until you have all those different segments. So just do it's a little bit random, like doing that here, and this one opposite, like this here, maybe a little bit lighter, and this one maybe here, and yeah, after that I add maybe some light parts, so maybe make this a little bit lighter like this. And maybe make adding some saturation like this here. And so I just keep keep adding gradients like that to create this this effect basically. So we recommend to try that out. Let's go to the effects. Let's show this effect here. Let's make background color. Most of the times I show these tutorials, I work on this this white background. But now let's draw one color background, and that creates contrast between colors. So that's also really influences the colors a lot. So start with a straight line because that's the direction, right, of this power ball. Then I draw this. Basically, it's some kind of flame or smoke or something or magic following this this ball. Gets from white to thin. So, and this is the most interesting part. It's basically drawing X here, small one, big one, small one, medium, medium, smaller, smaller, etc. And that I use those negative space between to create these funny looking shapes like this here. So I would recommend again to first try to draw this shape, and then to try to make your own version out of it. So like this here. And here maybe not not really happy with this shape here. So try out stuff to see what works fine for you. And try to keep making both sides really different. So just take now to not spend too much time on this sketch here. And yeah, after that, I just make the lighter and I start sketching on top of it like this. Here. Like this here. So here I also added this extra shape like this here. So it's okay to add stuff if you think it makes it better. And then you can turn off the sketch, right, to get that final line here. So maybe first make a rough sketch on top of it and clean it up later. That's also fine. So here, try to play a bit around with it. Try to be creative. Stuff, especially after you've practiced so much of my drawings, and it can be really hard trying to make your own version, but it's something you can go through. You can go through. So here, going around here, then here we have these shapes, and etc. And once you've cleaned it up, then you can put colors behind it. That's actually not that. Let me quickly show that how I would do that. So you can make it either with a brush. So first put this on multiply. I think normally I wouldn't do this. Oh, normal. Is this an empty layer? Yes. This on multiply, and I do this now on multiply because I want to see through it, through what I paint. So yeah, forget that. But here I use a color and a hard brush. I just start coloring it. Maybe zoom in to get these details right, or use the lasso tool in Photoshop L to make these selections, right? And then yeah, paint this whole shape. Do it quite quickly, like this here. To make sure those edges are nice and tidy, not as what I'm doing here, but then I draw a separate layer on top of it. And this one is lighter, like this. And so maybe make a hard eraser. Make those edges. A lot of times I'm using the lasso tool to make these lines a bit sharper. But that's basically the technique I use to paint that. And with a soft brush, or I gave it gradients, or with the gradient tool, for example here, you see light effect, or a soft brush. So like this, brush settings, turn the hardness off. Like this. So I want to move on to the next fire effect. So turn off all these layers. Like this here, and we have this fire effect. So that painting is all the same for that. So I don't want to focus too much on that. I really want to focus on how to draw this stuff. So what's cool thing about with fire is that when you start out with a shape, with a ball like this here, and draw this cross inside it. So like this. And you can put this on every direction. You can also use this for a regular flame, etc. But when you have a shape like this, you can start adding a ball here, and a ball here. And again, erase that maybe a little bit, and then try to connect these parts like this here. Maybe you want to have another ball here. So like this here. And then maybe you can add this flame edge like this here. And like this here. And here, these shapes. Like this, going around here. And now we can start drawing in that final line. Try to be a bit random. Don't be too much of a slave for these kinds of shapes. Like this here. Maybe I don't like it or something, then you can change it. So also try to be playful, with it. So here, then here, maybe add a line here, something like this. And then inside that shape, you can start adding, and I do that more random. I just start drawing here these shapes like this here. And then here. So I would recommend to follow the drawings. And maybe after that, try to make your own version. Maybe do it with one ball, right? So what I did here. And after that, you can try it with multiple, like I did here. So that's basically how I like to draw flames. Also, when something is on fire or a campfire or something, I use the same technique, water. So here, so of course this water moves in a line. I like to add this flowing line like this here. Then we have this ball in the middle, and then there's power is coming out of it like this here. So, and then you can start adding these big shapes. And here at this stage, it doesn't look like anything. But I'm basically breaking that hard to draw stuff inside smaller shapes. And that's also what I do when I drew those props, right? I have all these different shapes. And once I have this, I start drawing here, and there. Maybe first really roughly, and then later. Oh, first I drew these. I didn't do these shapes here. So the trick is to use these big shapes and later break these shapes down in smaller shapes. That's how I drew this water. And always try to play around with small, big, and medium, and not in that order. Play around with the order as well, but in those uneven numbers. You can also use it with 5 things, right? So big, medium, then maybe really tiny, really big, or something. So yeah, a lot of times it's uneven numbers that make stuff interesting and more natural looking. So the same with the thunder. We have a straight line, and the point of impact. Then we have this energy bursting out of this point of impact. And then we have this line going like this here, and then here. Got like this here, going like this here, and going really thin, like there. Maybe move these parts, going down a little bit like this here. Then here, being also random with these shapes. And being random can be surprisingly hard. And once we've done this, we can be more about the details. So big shape, medium shape. Don't make it too even, right? try to be a bit random. So here's small and here's big space. Think about it as music. You want to have that rhythm in your drawings. And sometimes you have even shapes, and it's better to avoid them, but it's not that big of a deal if you have a couple of them, but try to avoid them as much as you can, or you're allowed by time, right? So then you can just start adding here in all these details. So again, try to make your own version, like yeah, saying with all these different things, and you can first use my versions to yeah, to learn from it. Smaller because a bit above, and here we have these lines going like this, and start adding these smaller random lines. And it's a good practice for trying to become random. Maybe try to fill your whole page from your sketchbook or something with random shapes and stuff. So you develop a feeling out of it. So small, smaller, bigger shape, small shape, etc. Once you have a sketch like this, you can actually, yeah, what I would do, I wouldn't even make a final sketch. Beneath it, I would just start drawing the thunder with the lasso tool or a hard brush like this. Put it maybe on separate layers. Those thunder strikes like this. This is one thunder strike, and then you have that really thin one around it, like this here. And remember, try to have fun and be playful around it. Don't overthink it. So here, and yeah, just if it the first time not perfect, that's also fine, right? Yeah, keep practicing this. It just takes time to learn this stuff. And then I would add maybe the next part on a separate layer. Again, this lasso tool, maybe here, making these shapes with it with the lasso tool. You don't have to draw all those details with line art if you, especially when you're not going to use all this line art. So yeah, some people like to even draw stuff with the lasso tool like this here. Try to again play with big shapes, small shapes, medium shapes, etc. So that is basically how I draw effects. And again, I would just recommend people to study all these drawings I have, or at least the ones you like or want to learn, and maybe draw them from a different angle using those big shapes first. And maybe you can draw some objects from your own area where you live, from your own living place, or maybe yeah, use internet to find some cool objects you want to learn to draw. Draw those maybe first realistically, and try to simplify them along the way. The most important thing with learning how to draw or learn something is to, yeah, just start drawing. And when it's too hard or you get stuck, try something more simple. Be a bit kind to yourself. So I hope you'll like these videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye, and have fun drawing.